In 2025, you've got a lot of options for what games you can place your focus on. There's all sorts of different genres and titles to choose from, both new and old games that are still going strong. In my case, though, there's one game that's always seemed to stand out among the rest, and that game is The Elder Scrolls Online. My name's Doc, and I'm here today not to answer the question of should you play ESO, because I already know the answer to that. I'm here today just to give you my reasons why I think playing ESO is worth your time. Let's first start by talking about how you can get into the game and what the experience is like. So right off the bat, I think one of the nice things about ESO is how easily you're able to get into the game. The base game, which includes literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of content, is only around $20 on Steam. I would assume it's the same on consoles. Maybe some of my console friends can answer that question for me. I'm fairly certain it's also available on Xbox Game Pass, but I'm a PC player, so I can't say that with 100% certainty. The subscription for ESO is optional, though a lot of the community would recommend it for things like the craft bag and access to previous DLC. Once you get into the game, you'll be prompted to create a character, and you've got a good amount of options to choose from. 9 races, plus you can purchase the Imperials, and 4 base classes, plus 3 DLC classes to choose from. I think this is also an excellent time to mention that since this game takes place in the Elder Scrolls universe, the races and classes will be very familiar to you if you've played games like Morrowind, Oblivion, or Skyrim. Once you've got all that done, you'll head into the tutorial and then eventually your starting zone. Regardless of where you go, I think ESO does a great job of guiding players, because you'll always be prompted to follow the zone story, which is the main quest line of each area. Speaking of the story, I think this is a great time to transition to our next topic, which is what makes ESO unique. Well, one of ESO's most attractive features is that it arguably has some of the best questing and solo content of any MMO on the market today. Like I mentioned earlier, there's literally hundreds of hours of content just in the base game, and a lot of that is quests. Whether you're following ESO's story via the zone quest or just doing some side quests, every single interaction with an NPC is fully voice acted. The quests and stories are enjoyable, compelling, and most of the time, very well written. With this game being set in one of the highest selling single-player RPG franchises of all time, it's no wonder why the solo experience is so revered by the player base. Of course though, in order to complete quests, you gotta fight things, so let's talk about combat. This is one of the more polarizing topics within the MMO community, as ESO is an action MMO, meaning it doesn't have the same tab targeting system that games like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy have. A lot of people will talk about things like bar swapping, weaving, and floatiness as common complaints. In my personal opinion, I actually enjoy the combat. I find the action-oriented combat and double weapon system to be really rewarding and much more engaging than a lot of other MMOs that I've played. Even if you don't agree with me and still hate the weapon swapping system, there are plenty of single bar builds that players can take advantage of, which will eliminate the need for swapping bars at all. Light attack weaving, while still prevalent, is really only necessary in endgame content. You can very easily enjoy the vast majority of the game without ever worrying about weaving. And the floatiness? I can actually understand that. Some skills and attacks can feel like there isn't really much weight behind them, and if that's a deal breaker for you, then hey, I guess I understand. However, I'd still urge you to try out some of the many skills and weapons that ESO has to offer, because there are plenty of skills with fantastic animations. And while we're on the topic of combat, let's also talk about progression. And one of my favorite things about ESO is that it mixes both vertical and horizontal progression. There's the typical level grind, like any MMO, and you'll continue to gain levels for a very long time. Even beyond that, you've got all sorts of weapon lines, guild lines, crafting, etc., all to level and get skills from. You can reach the gear level cap pretty quickly though, and from there, the horizontal progression begins. You can start collecting sets that give you bonuses, and plenty of them have even unique animations or effects. Now that you've got some gear, it's time to head into my absolute favorite thing to do in ESO, and in my opinion, its strongest part of the game, the group content. This, in my opinion, is where ESO shines the brightest. It has some of the best group PvE content that I have ever played. Whether it's just doing some questing with a friend, 4-player dungeons and arenas, or even your 12-man raids, there's something for everyone who enjoys group content. ESO follows the trifecta of tank, damage dealer, and of course, healer. With so many skills and sets in the game, you've got plenty of options at your disposal to fill these roles. Once you've got your preferred role set, you can start jumping into some random dungeons. These match-made activities are very quick, unless you get City of Ash 2. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you get that. I really am. I feel for you. Please don't leave if you get City of Ash 2. They come in multiple difficulties and they're really fun. However, my absolute favorite part of ESO, and the part I want to talk about for a sec, are the 12-man raids known as Trials. I really cannot stress how fun these are, and I wish more players knew just how accessible these are. I've played a ton of different games, raid, activity, end game type of stuff, and ESO is genuinely like the best, in my opinion, when it comes to this. Of course, that's my humble opinion. My channel revolves around ESO, so I think it makes sense, but I really think that they do a fantastic job of making the content both accessible yet challenging on the end game. Because it comes in multiple difficulties. Normal trials are perfect just to learn or farm some gear without having to try too hard, whereas veteran trials are challenging and exciting with some of the best loot in the game to chase after. Of course, it wouldn't be an MMO if there weren't tons of other things to do outside of fighting. You want to be a master crafter who can make all sorts of things? You can do that. Are you into fashion or housing and just want to hunt down all the coolest looking items? You can do that too. Are you an explorer who wants to dig up lost treasure for loot and gold? You got it. Maybe you're just a simple fisherman who wants to chill by the pond without a care in the world. Go for it. Or maybe you want to use all of these skills to be a master of the in-game economy and make millions of gold. Then this is still the place for you. I've been playing ESO for years, and to be completely honest with you, not once have I ever been bored, because there's just so many things to do, even outside of group content and questing. Heck, there's even communities dedicated to role-playing if that's your thing. Speaking of which, I think this is the perfect time to talk about the community. And community is one of the most important things in an MMO or just any live service game really, and I'd say ESO has a great community. Do you have your usual trolls, jerks, toxic individuals? Of course, no game is immune from that. I've also seen even more examples of things like helping people with world bosses, teaching people trials, giving people items for no other reason than just to be nice, and genuinely kind people who love the game and want to see it thrive with a larger player base. If you decide to hop in and get involved with the community, I'd recommend finding a guild. It helps you find a close-knit group of people to hang out with, run content with, and all sorts of other things. There are a ton of guilds to choose from, and a lot of them are very welcoming and happy to accept new players. And I think that'll do it for all the reasons why you should consider playing ESO. I know there are plenty of other aspects of this massive game that I missed, but this was meant to be more of a quick, hey, you should come try this, rather than a new player guide or a full true review. If you need a new player guide, there are plenty of other awesome ESO content creators who have been making those for years now. If you really want me to make one, leave a comment down below and I may look into doing that. But my goal here, like I said, just wasn't to ask if you should play ESO, because you can click on my channel and see my answer to that. I just wanted to encourage players to try or return to ESO because I love this game and I'm excited to see what the future has in store. If you enjoy ESO, or especially healing in ESO, feel free to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video from me. I've also got my other socials and channels linked below. Finally, I think all I've got left to say is that I've been Doc. Take care of yourselves, be good to others. Don't forget to click on my channel for plenty more ESO content, and I will catch y'all in the next one.